It, timer didn't. Okay, there we go. I don't know why the timer didn't show up. I clicked on the timer. Anyways, I am back. You may notice something different about the background. I got foam soundproofing, which is fun for me. Uh-oh, what's going on? Go back there. Okay. Achievements. This is let's see, achievements. I think I wanted to go to analytics, right? Whatever. Look, the important thing is I have the tabs open that I want to have open right now. And today's a day of very, very bipolar news. Some of it very good, some of it bad, some of it bad, except it's like a silver lining or whatever. Anyways, what do I have on my job list? Stormy Sea, Frosty Forest. Have a look. Store. Considering our year, that's good news. Yeah, considering that we've been dealing with the second Trump administration for almost 10 months now. Yeah. That would in fact be good news, that anything good has happened, or anything has happened that could even be interpreted as good. You know? Let me go take care of my items. Oh yeah, in fact, I can share, I'll share a little bit of good news, I think, which is the, watch the Vosh video about coal miners. Oh yeah, that might be a fun subject of discourse, but as far as videos, I've got something else planned for what's gonna be like the video to come out of stream today. Yeah, coal mining fucking sucks. You remember when I was talking about manufacturing jobs and how Americans' brains are broken because they don't realize the cognitive dissonance between, yes, I want manufacturing to come back, no, I will not work in manufacturing. The coal miners experience regularly the kind of working conditions, maybe even worse versions of said working conditions, than you would experience in the manufacturing industry. But they are, they're like, frankly, they're really dumb. So they're like, oh, we gotta get those, we gotta get the coal mining jobs, you know? Coal mining is the name of the game, that's what we gotta do. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense, because they're literally working in a coal mine. But yeah, they are brain poisoned. I don't know what the music box does, but okay. It stops the puppet? True. Wrong game, though. In either event, I'll live dangerously without the music box in my inventory. Yeah, I know, I was playing into the bit. The FNAF puppet is gonna attack me in this game, because I don't have the music box. I've already done all the Makihira Dojo stuff. Let's store... Wait, no, actually, let's take all the money out and then drop all this money on friend areas. Or... No, not friend areas. First, I want to go to the Kecleon market. Let's see. Huge apple. Max elixir. Okay, I'm going to buy some stuff here first. I will buy that reviver seed. That could be very useful in the future. I'll buy this huge apple and then that other huge apple, and that should be good. Imagine Pokemon if it wasn't under capitalism. I mean, Pokemon is such an incoherent game series that it kind of doesn't work to imagine it as being a part of one system or another, you know? But Pokemon is considerably less capitalistic than the world that we live in because you don't have to pay for medicine. You just have to go to a Pokemon Center building. I meant the people who make the game. Oh, you mean like the development cycle of Pokemon if it wasn't under capitalism? Honestly, that's kind of a hard thing to picture because it would just be, like incredible. It'd be like fucking society if capitalism didn't dictate that the Pokemon franchise be mostly slop that gets pumped out under very strenuous working conditions or something. So obviously these. Then what else? I don't have any held items that can... Okay. I'll sell the Graveler rocks. Here, let me look up, Let me see. Oh, okay, the Supreme Court has not ruled on this. I guess that makes sense. We haven't gotten any headlines to this effect, so it stands to reason that the court wouldn't have ruled on it yet. If they did, there would be headlines about it. The Supreme Court has been hearing the case about Trump's tariffs. And I was honestly surprised. I was genuinely very surprised with the degree to which they just seemed not particularly impressed with the argumentation presented by the Trump administration. There's audio of this out there in the wild on C-SPAN. Which, by the way, we had to fucking fight tooth and nail. People had to fight tooth and nail just to get audio transcripts of the Supreme Court, proceedings. That shit used to, like, not be public. That used to be entirely, like, opaque and non-transparent. I can only imagine the state the country would be in if people weren't allowed to even hear the arguments made at the Supreme Court and like how it went in the actual courtroom. Nonetheless, the Trump administration's lawyers tried to argue that Trump should and or does have the power as per the Constitution to do tariffs unilaterally, and they were like, it's a dumb argument. It's a wrong argument, an impossible argument to make, because no, the president doesn't have the power unilaterally, not according to the Constitution, to do tariffs. That's a power of the purse thing, you know, because it's the flow of money is managed in part by tariffs. And that's Congress's job. Granted, Congress doesn't do jack shit. But even still, that doesn't make it not their job. So there was all sorts of logical twists and turns and pretzels being made by the Trump administration. And through it all, I was listening to the audio where none of the judges were actually particularly happy. Alito, Thomas, and Roberts were completely quiet. Those are the three most far-right judges on the court right now. And then, surprisingly, Kavanaugh and Barrett do give kind of a shit about what the law says. The thing that I was really not expecting. I heard I heard some audio from the court. Kavanaugh, Barrett, Jackson, Kagan, and Sotomayor were all really, really not happy with like audibly so with what the Trump administration was trying to argue, because you could kind of tell the way that they were talking. This wasn't about tariffs. It was about consolidation of power in the executive that was previously so widely understood that even legal scholars didn't question it. Authority that should be with Congress and the courts, depending on the instance, right? And here the Trump administration is saying, no, this power has always been either the purview of or like eligible to be used by the executive. Actually, this has always been our power, right? It almost read less like a debate over the economic necessity of tariffs. More so, it was like a debate over the consolidation of power. Should the government be allowed to consolidate power or shouldn't they? And the three justices, Roberts, Thomas, and Alito, who are complete fascist sycophants, understood exactly how untenable I think it would be for them to just go along with it as much as I think they want to. So they just kind of shut the fuck up and we're like, I'm just gonna fade into the background. Yeah, legitimately the Trump administration was saying like, let us be a dictator. Ooh, we promise we'll be extra nice, tee-hee, you know? So like I went from thinking, oh yeah, the Supreme Court's just going to rule whatever way Trump wants, to now I think that like there's a really good chance that the Supreme Court is gonna rule pretty soundly against Trump, and I don't think the dissent is gonna be anything special. I don't even know if the dissenting judges are gonna like be particularly vociferous in their dissent, you know. They're only doing this because of social pressure. Oh, 100%. Because think about it. The Trump administration is arguing that the executive branch should have the power and the judiciary shouldn't. This is the point where like a lot of the more institutionalist, legalist fascists are starting to get like, you know, uncomfortable with the prospect of the executive branch, like brown shirt fascists, trying to make consolidationary advances, because now this directly threatens the power of the Supreme Court to weigh in on such affairs, right? It increases the speed with which the government would be able to like break down checks and balances in the future. That's why the Supreme Court is concerned about this for the most part, you know? And also, it's no secret that business interests are deep in the pockets of the conservative side of the Supreme Court. Most of the left-leaning judges will have histories as defense attorneys, prosecutors, and lawyers that are kind of in the orbit of civil rights, of like civil rights law and that sort of thing. From the more Democratic Party affiliated or left-leaning side of things, any judges that become Supreme Court justices tend to have that kind of background, right? That's the thing that a Democratic administration tends to look for when they're nominating those. With the more conservative candidates, they will have a robust legal background. Any Supreme Court justice probably will. But they will probably be more along the lines of a think tank background or business connections. And that's important because when you have a Supreme Court that's staffed by people who care about civil rights and business interests, civil rights on the left, business interests on the right, even if they are fascists, they're not going to be very happy with something that so directly and severely treads on the interests of businesses in America. And tariffs are just fucking bad for everybody, right? Except for a handful of oligarch grifters who are, you know, hardcore pushing the tariffs. You know, there's those few oligarchs that control an ungodly amount of resources, right? And then you have Scott Bessent and all the grifters in the administration. But there are a lot of even pro-Trump billionaires and business owners that are very uncomfortable with the tariffs. Yeah, it's like, you know, the right wing is kind of like, in that sense, in the aggregate, they're the dog that doesn't know if they want to go outside or not. They're very indecisive. But the Supreme Court, being more tied up in the business interests and more beholden to them directly than, you know, your more insane brown shirt types, they wouldn't dare do something as egregious as allow such a massive tariff package to go through unilaterally, right? Because that would destroy the American economy, in parentheses, business interests. You know? Does that make sense? That would hurt the people that they have social connections with, is what I'm saying. You know? And conveniently for all of us, but for them, they also have the very easy and easily accessible reasoning that this is also so fucking illegal that I almost don't even have to argue against it. I can simply ask clarifying questions, right? I mean, granted, the job of the justices isn't really to argue for or against a given case. Like, practically, they do that just by agreeing or not agreeing to hear a certain case. But, like, usually there is when the Supreme Court hears a case, there are arguments from either side of legal preferences, right? And I actually haven't heard any arguments from the side opposing these tariffs, because the case for the tariffs provides its own, like, refutation. It's like, let me be Hitler. That is my argument. What is the argument against that? They have said, please let me be Hitler. Like, how else are you supposed to argue against that aside from saying, like, you have just hung yourself with a rhetorical length of rope? Or hanged, I suppose. So it looks like the tariffs are probably not gonna stand in all likelihood, which is good. That is in fact good. You go, join team. Very good. Rare bit of good news coming from the Supreme Court of all places. Although there's also, I don't want to, like, make people feel like, we're safe or anything. It's still a second Trump term in America. The Supreme Court, from what I've heard, is also considering, or may consider, a case against Obergefell v. Hodges. For those not familiar, that is the case law that makes gay marriage protected by the Constitution in America. Basically, there's like, yeah, this thing is legal, and then there's another layer of it being legal, which is you're not even allowed to make a law to make this illegal. Constitutional protection is, this is so legally enshrined, you're not allowed to make it illegal. And there is a court case called Obergefell that makes gay marriage so legally protected that you're not allowed to legally ban it, regardless of what level of government you're talking about. And I think there was a case, a 14th Amendment court case, or something like that, like Equal Protection Clause, something or other, where it's like, oh, I'm a small business owner and I don't want to serve this gay couple. Legitimately was like, this goes against my religious beliefs because I don't like gay people. I don't want to give a cake to these gay people because they're gay and I oppose being gay. This is, and they tried to argue that that was their right constitutionally. And the Supreme Court said, no, you have to give them the cake. You don't have the right to refuse service to somebody on the basis of them being gay. That is a law in the United States. If somebody is black, you can't refuse service to them because they're black. If somebody is a woman, you can't refuse service to them if they're a woman. If somebody is gay or trans, well, trans is like more of a debate and purely for the reason that I think the Supreme Court has specifically ruled that discrimination against trans people is legal. But if you're gay, you cannot be refused service at a place of business because you are gay. They would have to say, yeah, like, your business connections are suspect, or you're like, we have a no shirt, no shoes, no service policy, and you're not wearing a shirt, or something like that. There are reasons that businesses can refuse service to people. Being gay or black or a woman or an immigrant are not among those reasons. That is protected by the law. And the Supreme Court seems like they might actually be primed to hear a case against the gay marriage protections. Again, it would be like a re-litigation of a case they already heard. I think this case made it up to the Supreme Court back in the day. And so gay marriage in the United States, it's possible, could lose that protection where it is so legally protected that it's illegal to make a law against gay marriage. If that protection gets revoked, then states could pass laws explicitly protecting gay marriage, saying this is legal. But if you're in a conservative state, that state could, in the absence of Obergefell, say, okay, we're going to pass this law, gay marriage is illegal. And they could just do that, you know? That could be really bad for gay people living in states that end up going that way. But at the same time, I am an accelerationist. And I would be remiss if I didn't recognize that if the Supreme Court overturns Obergefell, since they do have an overwhelmingly socially conservative bend, the conservatives, as much as they are moderated by their business interests in how hard they want to destroy the country, they are still socially conservative. You know, Kavanaugh being a frat bro with credible allegations of rape, and Amy Coney Barrett coming from like a freak religious conservative organization and background. It's very likely that they could rule against the constitutional protection for gay marriage in the same way that they, I think, already did for a section of the Voting Rights Act. Here, hold on. They're considering it. Okay. The Supreme Court will decide this term. This is from the Brennan Center for Justice. This is, I think, like a legal news outlet or something like that, like legal issues. Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act at the Supreme Court. Basically, this says that you can't break up all the minority communities and put them in different districts so they don't have any representation in government. There's a really weird racial bend to legislative politics in the United States where, like, yeah, if this state has about 1/5 of the population being black, you have to give the black population about 1/5 of the seats in government. Because what used to happen is part of Jim Crow was that they would draw districts in such a way, on top of all the poll testing and stuff, so that it was really hard for black people to vote at all. They would also draw districts so that if a state had like 1/5 of its population was black, they wouldn't get any seats. All the seats would be majority white communities. They like splinter a bunch of different neighborhoods and stuff like that. There's a section of the Voting Rights Act that makes that illegal, and the Supreme Court is potentially going to overturn that. You know, I think a modern day example of this is Mississippi, which has a very sizable black population. I think it's like 1/3 of the state or something like that. Hold on. Mississippi, black population? Yeah, 37.8% of the population of the state of Mississippi is African American. And so what the Voting Rights Act says, the law says that the amount of seats that they have in government in the state and federally has to be basically reflect reflective of that percentage, specifically because there's the incentive for reactionaries and racists. Oh, god damn it. To break up those communities. Hold on, some of the foam insulation is like peeling off. Dang it. I just put it on this morning. Damn it. Sorry about that. I think this adhesive like isn't the greatest, but do that. Sorry about that. Okay. Been keeping an eye on those foam panels because they've been a little bit of trouble today. But yeah, the Supreme Court is like hearing a bunch of cases right now because there's like a several month period where they're in session. And then there's several months where they're out of session and they're like not doing anything. So this session there's the gay marriage case, there's the Voting Rights Act case, and there's the tariffs case. And the tariffs case actually seems to be going our way, but I'm nervous about the other ones. Although again, accelerationism, if they rule in favor of like the reactionaries, like yes, you can completely draw maps that completely shut black people out of legal power or legislative power in the state, or you know, legislative representation. Yes, you can make laws that say that gay marriage is illegal. I genuinely think that the Republican Party will never recover because the backlash will be absolutely gargantuan. The question is, does the Supreme Court rule purely on their reactionary instincts and incite that backlash, or does the Supreme Court act in a rational, cynical self-interest, you know, still evil, but rationally, and do the correct ruling, in which case things coast by without such backlash, but they also don't get to, you know, repeal all the rights that those dang gays have. You know? That's the situation that the court is currently in. Do you make things worse and increase the demand for radical change, or do you not make things worse as much as you want to make things worse and keep that demand for change relatively quiet or not exacerbated? That's the question. Guess we know what they want with the food tariffs? Possibly. That could be an indication of what they want. But they've done this before where they, like, every now and again, they will sort of rule in a pretty inoffensive kind of way. And then they'll do some, like, massive fuck you to America. Where it seems like just calculated just enough to maintain their legitimacy or something like that. I'm going to take a couple more apples out of storage. And then I'll go to Stormy Sea. Take an apple and one more apple. But speaking of the Republican Party being kind of cooked, I wanted to do a more detailed recap of the elections. Not necessarily in, like, saying like point per point with each election, but I kind of want to go through and name drop each election that happened on Tuesday and just how much Democrats won in an off year, by the way, not even the midterms. Here, let's see. November 2025 elections. Okay, here we go on Wikipedia. Wikipedia has some stuff here. Maybe I can look at this. Elections were held in the United States in large part on November 4th, 2025. The off-year election included gubernatorial, for governor, and state legislative elections in a few states, as well as numerous mayoral races and a variety of other local offices on the ballot. Special elections to the U.S. Congress for newly vacant seats also took place. In what was widely described as a blue wave election, Democrats both flipped the governorship of Virginia. That's right, the Democrat got elected for governor in the state of Virginia, Abigail Spanberger, and held on to the governorship of New Jersey by landslide margins, flipped 13 seats in the Virginia House of Delegates, scored a decisive redistricting referendum victory in California. That's right, this passed. So California, by the way, the new congressional map, here. It doesn't show. This isn't the map I'm looking for. Politico. Nope. No, thank you. Nope. Where's that map? What am I thinking of? There's a map of California, redistricting map. Here, hold on. Yeah, this is the redistricting that would happen in California. This is how many Republican seats were in California before. This is how many seats for Republicans would be in California afterwards. There would be 5 new, or actually 6. Yeah. New Democratic seats. I guess because of the census they would have 53 instead of 52, or something like that. Or maybe they just did this math wrong. Nonetheless, California would become even more firmly in the hands of the Democratic Party. So that passed. Are you kidding me? Again! I'm sorry, guys. The soundproofing foam is just really not behaving right now. It's just that one panel, though. There's I've put sticky notes. There are some places where I haven't put up the soundproofing foam yet. But right now I have 4 panels, and 4 more panels in the corner just over there. Then you can see those, that's 8 panels back there, squares of 4. And there's 4 panels, it's kind of off screen, but right next to my surfboard. Then there's 2 panels on the wall next to the door, because there's like a little corner there. So far, I've only had problems. I guess this could be a good sign as well. I've only had problems with one of these squares of 4 panels, and it's the one that's immediately to the left of my PC. I don't know, it's possible it's something to do with the temperature being slightly higher over there. Anyways. But now back to the elections. So Virginia elections, New Jersey elections, Democrat landslide. California Democratic proposition won in a landslide. And the mayoral races, Democrats won all the major mayoral races as well, I think. Here, let's have a look at some of these elections. So Arizona Congressional District, Virginia's 11th. Gubernatorial, New Jersey and Virginia, lieutenant gubernatorial. Virginia, because Virginia has lieutenant governor as well. Attorney General. So Jay Jones, guy who joked about killing Republicans or something like that. I don't know. I don't know the lore in the text messages. Won by like a pretty comfortable margin. This was after a big scandal, and people by and large said, I don't care, I'm voting for him anyway because he's not a Republican. This election happened earlier this year. I remember this. I talked about that. Pennsylvania. That's right. Supreme Court elections happened in Pennsylvania. Where are the mayoral elections? Incumbents in... Oh, this election's actually not over yet. Seattle is still counting the votes, and it looks like Katie Wilson is catching up to Bruce Harrell. Bruce Harrell is a centrist shill, do-nothing type of Democrat on the West Coast, and Katie Wilson is, I think, one of the founders of the Transit Riders Union and like a workers' rights activist and shit like that. She's very cool. Hoboken, New Jersey, Jersey City, Miami. Democratic hold, perfect. Democratic gain in Syracuse, Democratic hold in a lot of places, some Republican holds as well. Democratic gain in Dearborn Heights. Where is New York? There we go. State Assembly member Zohran Mamdani elected in New York City. I wonder if I can see some of the margins in these. Here. 2025 Blue Wave. Shut up, Cardinal News. American Prospect. Democrats trounce Republicans across the country. This is an ad. I don't know why I'm getting... Man, I really thought there was gonna be like a detailed breakdown of this. Here, let me look at here, Georgia elections 2025 results. Let me take a look at the if I can see any of the election results in Georgia, because Georgia was a very shocking case. Maybe Ballotpedia will have what I'm looking for. More information. Okay, other state executive. Incumbents are bolded and underlined. Republican incumbent lost in Georgia for like public school officials, I think. Then Ballotpedia, please fucking let me do this shit. Special state legislative elections. Where... After, okay. Special elections. Wait, that was August. The fuck? November 4th, 2025. God damn it. Ugh, none of this is helpful. Look, the point is, why the fuck do you guys are... I fucking hate American news outlets for being as bad at information aggregation as they are, right? Because there wasn't like, I don't think there was a single election that happened on Tuesday where Republicans increased their margins. Even in these Republican holds, what it looks like they don't really tell you here, with the exception, I think, of this Republican gain, I guess, is that Democrats gained ground. The whole country shifted in favor of Democrats. I think there were districts that Trump won by like double-digit margins that flipped to the Democrats in some of these local elections. Again, fucking long shot that I would be able to find any of this information with how fucking awful American media is with presenting you with the information you're looking for. Jesus. Here. 2025 elections, Democrat seats flipped Democratic. Blah, blah, blah. The Guardian, please give me fucking something. 2025 off-year elections proved to be a major success for Democrats as candidates at state and local levels managed to make inroads into and even flip several Republican strongholds across the country. Imagine, if you will, for folks in another country, imagine a deep far-right constituency or a deep far-right stronghold suddenly voting for the left party. You know? Much of the national spotlight was centered on Zohran Mamdani's landmark win in New York, along with Democratic victories in the gubernatorial races of New Jersey and Virginia. And in both Virginia and New Jersey, there were several precincts or voting blocks that voted for Trump in 2024 that then voted for Democrats this year. Yet, results in smaller districts may have offered an even greater insight into the political landscape heading into the midterms. Please, Guardian, please tell me some shit. In Erie County, Pennsylvania, a region that narrowly favored Trump in the 2024 election, Democrat Christina Vogel won the county executive race by a commanding 24-point margin. Meanwhile, in Virginia's 66th State House District, a Democrat unseated a Republican who had held the seat for 36 years and was the state's longest-serving GOP delegate. A fucking 36-year Republican incumbent got unseated by a Democrat this election cycle. This would be like the most conservative region in Germany, like longtime AfD or like CDU, far right, like voted for the right wing since the days of the Nazis. And they're like, fuck it, we vote for the SPD and Die Linke now for the local elections. You know? Democrats also secured 2 statewide victories in Georgia's public service commissioner races, marking their first non-federal statewide win since 2006 and their largest margins of victory in more than 2 decades. Alicia Johnson defeated incumbent Tim Echols by a margin of 58-41. You get it. We're getting some numbers here. This is great from The Guardian. Peter Hubbard triumphs over Fitz Johnson by 61-39. These are not close, by the way. Considering there are only 2 major parties in America, these are very not close margins. Like, Democrats are starting to put up fucking Vladimir Putin, Bashar al-Assad numbers in these elections. The commission is responsible for utilities and has executive power to decide what are fair and responsible rates or reasonable rates for services under its jurisdiction. I'm assuming this being like, well, they say utilities, so utility bills. You see that part where Kamala Harris was like, it's because of me? Bitch, sit your ass down. I did not see that. But that is funny as fuck. Because she did nothing. And honestly, if she had if Kamala Harris had endorsed any of these people, they would have performed worse, not better. She needs to fucking take her narcissistic ass back to The View where she belongs. And never touch politics again, because it's like the reverse Midas touch. Everything she touches stagnates, blights, and withers away as an emblem of the political establishment and centrists in this country. She is Her ilk, the careerist ilk of Kamala Harris, their useless, narcissistic, bloated, like, lack of personality is the death of this country. And that's probably the strongest indictment I can manage of them, and that is not even an exaggeration either. These people will sell the country up the river for the sake of putting an additional bullet point on their resume. How do I know? Because they did that. Kamala Harris did that. Even in deep red Mississippi, Democrats achieved significant progress by flipping 2 state Senate seats, ending a 13-year Republican supermajority. Republicans lost supermajorities in red states in this election. In an off year, she wasn't even sad for losing. Yeah, good night, y'all. That was it. This shift prevents the GOP from unilaterally overriding gubernatorial vetoes or passing constitutional amendments with ease. In yet another notable outcome, Democrats gained control over the Onondaga County Legislature in New York for the first time in nearly 5 decades. They won all 6 contested seats, turning what had been a 12-5 Republican advantage to a 10-7 Democratic majority. Pennsylvania also saw Democratic momentum as voters in the critical swing county of Luzerne elected 4 Democrats and 1 Republican to the county council, giving Democrats control of the 11-member body. Republican John Lombardo was the only incumbent to retain his seat. County Democratic Chair Thomas Shabila expressed his satisfaction with the result, telling the Times leader, "We're still in the fight and out there winning elections with good candidates and hard work." Okay. A lot of these places, you can read a lot of these places and be like, I don't know what the fuck that is. I don't really care about this place or that place or whatever. But the important thing, there's even more. There's even more. The important thing is how many different, completely disconnected places in different states, Mississippi, New York, Georgia, Virginia, New Jersey, all these different states, all these different, locations from big cities to really small towns, county boards, governors races, mayors races, and public utilities officials everywhere experienced a dramatic shift to the left. Everywhere, with very, very sparing exception, shifted to the left. And that is because, I wonder why? Indeed, one wonders why. Let me just Google unrelated to anything. Government shutdown update. It's because of the government shutdown. It's because people have started to have their well-being directly impacted by the negative decision-making of this administration. The people are too comfortable to actually support fascism in the intermediate to long term. They prioritize their own comfort over their ideological hatred for minorities when it gets to the point that they actually start suffering so acutely that they might go hungry. When forced to choose between, do you want to eat this month or do you want to see your black neighbors starve with you? Most people actually chose, I want to eat this month. Yeah, in fact, here, what was the margin here? Young Mamdani voter demographic breakdown. Mamdani won by the numbers. Block element, please. Oh my fucking god. Ad nauseum, what the fuck do I have you for? Hide all ads, please. Jesus. You know what? I'll check back with that later. Share of registered voters who voted this election. A lot of people voted in a mayoral election, which was surprising. Okay. This is by region. He won every fucking incredible margins, by the way. Where is the... Great, thank you, the city, for not showing me the demographic breakdown. I'm gonna lose it, dude. Okay. Look at the margin. Look at this margin by which young people voted for Zoran Mamdani. 78% to 18% voted for Zoran Mamdani. And then 66% of people aged 30 to 44. Where is the, where's the gender breakdown, I wonder? I wanted to take a look at how much young men voted for Mamdani. I think it was like, it was something like 40 percentage points more young men voted for Mamdani than Cuomo. And young men is like the stronghold demographic of Republicans right now, because those are the online like groypers and incels. That's them. And Mamdani won that demographic. Not the groypers and incels, mind you. They probably either stayed home or voted Cuomo. But like the group of people that is most likely to overlap with those groups. You know, the most reactionary, statistically speaking, demographic. And that is because Mamdani's the main character. Okay, I'm gonna actually harken back to another video on my YouTube channel. Let's have a look. Let me search my channel for GOP. I want everybody... Okay, this is an I told you so moment. You guys see these two videos right here on my channel. Old school shit, back in the day, way back in the day, 2 years ago. I made these videos in the summer, the late spring and early summer of 2023. In these videos, I argued, as I will continue to argue today, that, as this title says, the GOP is done. Their goose is cooked. It's just a matter of time. They are running on the fumes of right-wing populism left over from 2016. I'm bad at predicting timeframes. I got some predictions wrong here, but my core argument ended up being correct. The Republicans only have Donald Trump to their name. He's the only source of charisma and like relatability and human like parasociality that exists in the Republican Party. He's the only thing that can actually cultivate mass support for them. And lately he's failed to do that because he's no longer the outsider. He's been in politics for the better part of 10 years. He's the familiar face. He's the establishment. Now you actually have another option to juxtapose against that. Now you have Zoran Mamdani. You have an answer from the left. You have a national main character to oppose Donald Trump. He's not the main character anymore. And the Republicans, as we saw from those elections, are kind of starting to fall apart over it. The Republicans, I don't know if you guys have seen any of the videos of them trying to justify their behavior regarding the government shutdown, their refusal to negotiate with Democrats or even come back to DC to like to protect like the price controls that exist for health insurance in this country. They are kind of floundering. They lit their own clothes on fire. They lit themselves on fire and are now getting mad that the Democrats aren't helping them put it out. And the Democrats are saying, just stop, drop, and roll, stop, drop, and roll. And they're like, no, we want you to pour water on us or something like that. I don't fucking know. Look, that analogy is kind of like dumb and of the moment, but you get what I'm saying is that the Republicans are self-sabotaging and they're genuinely kind of directionless right now. They used to be able to coast by on the immigration narrative and they kind of can't right now. You know, I think I even saw a clip of Mike Johnson very feebly attempting to sort of take a stab at the affordability narrative. And you know what they sounded like? they sounded like neolibs. They sounded like out of touch consultant brain neolibs, like during the Biden presidency. You guys remember when the economic messaging from the Biden administration, when they weren't doing good things and supporting unions, what they said was, no, your life isn't getting worse. Shut up. Line is going up. Everything is fine, actually. The Republicans are saying that actually more straightforwardly than the Biden administration even was, when they're saying, like, you know, yeah, we care about affordability. There's no problem with affordability, so shut up. This is inherently inflationary, so it's actually fine and good that grocery prices are going up. And no, you're not having trouble affording rent. Shut up. There is no Warren Bossing say. You know? Yeah, they're legitimately, they're starting to get more complacent, where the Democratic base is starting to get more and more animated as a result of like an increasing amount of progressive challengers promising like sweeping economic change popping up. And it's economic change that rides on the back of local activism and labor organizing and like community organizing instead of scapegoating. It, like, you know, the whole meme Obama where he came in like change, real change, and then did nothing. This is like, imagine if Obama actually meant it when he said that. All the riz and even more momentum to back it up because they are real people. You know, they're not like consultant tested fucks. I mean, plenty of Democrats still are that, and I hate them for it. But even those Democrats are kind of having to bend the knee to the new progressive challengers that are entering politics in force, because they realize that that's where the momentum is. That's where the political power is going to be. So they have to kiss the ring of that power in order to remain relevant. Otherwise, they'll lose. If they like directly try to challenge it, they have to try to co-opt it and get with the program, try to make the program get with them, or whatever else. Do you get what I mean? It's kind of like the Democratic version of the Tea Party that the Republicans had in the 2010s. And legitimately, it's one of the few times I've been like genuinely optimistic for the long-term future of the country, right? And this is all because progressives are being extremely loud and extremely annoying towards consultant brain centrists who don't want to do anything. You know? Now, the predominant political culture, you know, that politicians have to engage with, now they have to virtue signal to the left. We have, like, a lot of cultural power right now, which is great, because what we want to do with that cultural power is, hey, build more fucking affordable housing, freeze the fucking rents, you know, crack down on monopolies, and protect unions and shit. And that's just a start, not even to mention, you know, increasing taxes on high incomes and fortunes. And that type of shit. It also doesn't help that the Republican Party and Trump are actually like at odds right now. Trump has been posting on Truth Social like he's mentally ill, which I mean he is, so that tracks. But there's been an ongoing spat between Trump and the rest of the Republicans over who's responsible for the shutdown and who's responsible for the loss that Republicans experienced at the ballot box on Tuesday. With Republicans saying, we didn't lose, actually, something, Democrats bad, shut down something. Whereas Donald Trump saying that, yeah, it was because of the government shutdown that Republicans lost so badly, and it's because I wasn't on the ballot. Because he has a personality and ego that wants to be sated by approval, all he wants is to stay head of the Republican Party. And to that effect, he'll say, like, yeah, you guys kind of suck. And I mean, he's right. The Republicans do suck. But like my brother in Christ, you are a Republican. You know, that's you. That's your coalition. And now that Trump, like, now that Trump is actually like not super beneficial to the rest of the Republican Party, now that he's like, this is another moment where he's really not doing what they want him to do, they don't have anything left. You know, they're out of gas. I think they might actually finally be out of gas. All because they shut down the government to fucking erase all their names from the Epstein files. It's kind of poetic, honestly. It's a fitting end for a party whose primary ideological goal is pedophilia. That's what ends up being their undoing in the end. Wonder what's going to happen to their party once their leader dies? That's actually a good question, because Trump's health problems have only been growing more and more acute over the past several months. You know, we remember there was that scare for like a few days, like almost a week, where he had a stroke and like nobody saw or heard from him. And they had to do the whole like, guys, don't worry, President Trump isn't dead, leading many people to think he might have died. It's only a matter of time until another health scare happened and he's even further gone, or he actually does die, you know? And it is quite a relevant subject to think like, well, what then? And I think the Republican Party actually truly doesn't have an answer for what becomes of them once Trump dies. There's going to be a lot of splinter factions and shit like that. This is another thing I've speculated to on other occasions, that, you know, there's going to be a lot of splintering and deteriorating of the Republican coalition in the meantime after that happens. But I think I've seen some Republicans start to break from Trump and call him a communist. Similar kind of thing to what happened with Adolf Hitler after his death, where the Nazis were very, very insistent on their virtue as the most right-wing political organization in Europe or whatever. But then after the fact, some right-wingers viewed it as more convenient to their political objectives to paint Hitler after the fact as left-wing. That's probably going to happen with Trump. But ultimately, the Republican Party is going to face the same choice that they faced in the early 2010s and that the Democrats faced and are facing right now. Reform or die. You know, either they change something about themselves to be more appealing to the voter base. They like, I don't know, try to come up with a different narrative or a different platform or whatever. Or the Republican Party actually deteriorates and another political organization takes its place. I don't know which one of those it'll be, but it's going to be one of those. I genuinely don't think that a Republican Party could emerge from this in an unchanged state. I don't think it's possible for that to happen. You know, the Republican Party, to put it very simply, has invested too much of its identity and political resources and political machinery into Donald Trump and solely Donald Trump for there not to be a crisis within the Republican Party when he dies. And all I'm saying fundamentally is that it is going to be a party-wide crisis in the Republican Party from which they will not emerge unscathed. That's the only thing I'm arguing right now, because I think that's the only thing you really can argue with certainty, which is that this is a, like, the Republican Party's having a fucking bad time, and when Trump dies, it's going to be even worse for them, which is great for America, I think. I don't think it would even form fast enough to stop Mamdani. Yeah, it like... I think that the again, to speculate a little bit, it's going to clear the environment politically for progressives to basically make the political narrative be about them versus the centrists once the Republicans leave, you know? I don't know. I like legitimately this. I don't know how much this is in the long term gonna be, you know, the moment that sort of begins the actual downfall of the Republican Party. But it certainly seems like it right now, with the longest government shutdown in American history, in which, by the way, individual states are having to pick up the tab on food stamps. Let me check that out here. Which states are funding SNAP? Newsweek, take it away. The shutdown has gotten so bad, again, something that Republicans are responsible for because they control the fucking government. Here are the states that are funding SNAP. So, beige is they are increasing food bank funds. Salmon is direct financial aid. Blue is both, and pink is neither. You can see that with the exception of Wisconsin, there are quite a few red states that are not funding food banks or direct financial aid for SNAP recipients or for like food insecure households. And there are a lot of states that have picked up the tab, particularly the states, blue states are more likely to have picked up both. But you'll notice, look at the states that are, funding SNAP here, and you can see some of these states are known for being poor, much poorer than others. A lot of these red states, North Dakota, red state, Wyoming, red state, Utah, red state, Oklahoma, red state, Kentucky, red state. These states are dirt poor. This is rural America. Like middle America, they call it that because it's in the middle of America. Meanwhile, you look at some of the blue states funding SNAP: Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, New York, Illinois, California, Oregon, Washington, Vermont, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts. The Northeast region here, this is one of the wealthiest regions of America. And then you have West Virginia, one of the poorest states in America. Again, red state. And then these red states are super poor. They're going to run out of money first. And this is on Republicans. This is on the Trump administration. Even in fucking politically unimaginative, destitute coal mining West Virginia, people understand that the Trump administration bears responsibility for the lack of food stamps because food stamps is a federal program. That's the federal government. Who controls the federal government? Republicans. I truly don't think that there's any way that the Republican Party emerges from something like this. Not intact. They're gonna crack and break under this kind of pressure, I think. Either they look weak and they negotiate with Democrats and do what Democrats want. That even might be the only thing that the Republicans could do that would prevent the wholesale collapse of the party, is to negotiate with Democrats and basically give Democrats all of the agenda line items that they would want to put in the funding bill. And mind you, those agenda line items are things like extending healthcare subsidies, SNAP benefits, and the federal programs that we had before. Basically, what the Democrats are saying is, don't get rid of these federal programs, and as long as you do that, we will negotiate with you and support a bill to reopen the government. And the Republicans are like, no, we want you to reopen the government and we want to be able to get rid of these federal programs. Would it be funny if this is what caused America to collapse completely? Fuck, it might. Remember how I was saying how important food stamps are? Dude, ACA subsidies, healthcare subsidies are massively important. You know how much people paid for healthcare in this country? It's thousands of dollars per year, not counting when you actually have to go to the doctor and have to pay a like $1,000 out of pocket expense before insurance starts to pay for anything. People are less like, this is the only thing, two material outcomes that can happen as a result of this government shutdown are the like healthcare coverage of the United States deteriorates severely, and the food insecurity in the United States gets much, much worse. You know, conditions will worsen, but they will worsen more quickly in these very poor, very rural, very conservative states because they don't have the money to prop up these services without help from the federal government. Blue states, the wealthier states, they can weather the storm for a while. I don't know, man. This genuinely, if I'm a political scientist, I'm thinking about the kind of political capital that each party wants to expend on what, to get certain agenda items passed, to go to the media to say, look what we've done for Americans. This really looks like the beginning of a party collapse for the Republicans. Somebody who's like taking political science classes or is a political scientist, let me know what you think of that analysis. You know, like, today I will shut down the government and get rid of every federal program and then refuse to negotiate with the opposition party to reopen the government. And then the president like throws you under the bus for it, like distances himself from you. Yeah, I don't think this ends well for the Republicans, like at all. It's kind of exciting to think about, not gonna lie. Bet the hotline is getting more and more calls. Probably. Shit, dude. I mean, yeah, like, statistically speaking, you're right. The, suicide prevention hotline, mental health hotlines, whatever. They're getting a lot more phone calls right now. Shit, that's not even to mention, hold up, where's the, where's that other article? Here we go, from Reuters. Airports are shutting down now. I mentioned healthcare and food as two really big subsidies and government programs that have gone away as a result of the shutdown. Republicans' fault, by the way. Thank you, because they control the government. Airports are shutting down now. Flights are being canceled because the FAA, it doesn't have fucking money to give. And of course, the FAA director is like a Republican hack and blamed it on the Democrats. But at the end of the day, you honestly can't talk about this in any capacity without implicating Republicans in prolonging this government shutdown and creating it to begin with. It's going to hamper Alaska. Oh yeah, there are some states in America, Hawaii and Alaska being two significant ones, they depend on air travel a lot for supply drop, for like the supply lines that are run by air. Alaska and Hawaii depend on this a lot. So does Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico depends on this too. This is going to be pretty bad. Right now, it's 10%. 10% of flights have been canceled. As time goes on, guys, there was already a major air traffic controller shortage. They were already not being paid enough. And now all these federal employees, a lot of the pilots, the air traffic controllers, airport workers, they are not being paid. They just got their second pay stub that reads 0. They've missed an entire month's pay. And even if the government were to open right now, they would still miss the next 2-week paycheck. They would have to wait until they get back pay. They're guaranteed that back pay once the government opens. There's a law that says they have to get back pay. But all the people that work in these airports, on these flights, that don't work directly for like a private company or whatever, that get paid with federal money, they're getting paid nothing right now. Not all the air traffic controllers, they're having to do their jobs for free. And a lot of them just aren't showing up to work because, like, if you're not getting fucking paid to do your shit ass air traffic controller job, why show up at all? Your boss would probably understand. They'd be like, look, you're not getting a paycheck. I'm not getting a paycheck. It doesn't matter to me if you don't come in. Like, perfectly understandable. $13,000 air traffic controllers and 50,000 TSA agents have been forced to work without pay. Tens of thousands of flights have been delayed since the shutdown began because of widespread air traffic control shortages. Airlines say at least 3.2 million travelers have already been impacted by air traffic control shortages. This is gonna fucking destroy the economy or whatever's left of it. Without even mentioning the AI bubble, which is nigh upon us. The government did not name the 40 airports affected. 40. The cuts were expected to hit the 30 busiest, including those serving New York City, Washington, D.C., Chicago, Atlanta, L.A., and Dallas. Yeah, this is the fucking Great Depression arc, and Republicans are like fumbling the ball really hard on trying to convince people that this wasn't like objectively their fault. Again, all of this because they were like purely wanted to see minorities suffer. Purely wanted to get rid of federal programs. Remember, the way that government shutdowns even happen in the first place is because the government can't pass a funding bill on time. What the Republicans always try to do when these funding bills come around is we want to get rid of this federal program. We want to cut funding to this federal program. We want to cut funding to this federal program. We want people to receive less funding and aid from the government. We want people to receive less healthcare. We want people to receive less food aid. We want people to receive less I don't know. We want air traffic controllers to be paid less. You know? Less funding for like all this shit that is critical for any economy of scale to be kept running. And every time almost every time it results in either the fear of or an actual government shutdown. And then for most times previously, some sort of bill gets negotiated to push it back to the next year, and the government reopens, and things kind of start chugging along again with maybe some reductions in federal programs, but they're still kind of limping along, right? This time they were like, no, we want to get rid of some of this stuff entirely. And the Democrats were like, no, you control the government. You have the majority in the House. You have the majority in the Senate. You're so big and bad. Pass it on your own, dumbass. And then they just shut down the government. This is what I would do if I was controlling my opponents. Yeah, if I were speed running the death of the Republican Party, this might be what I do. Black Friday thing happens, but it's in grocery stores. I mean, enough time passes, that is going to happen. You know, petty theft tends to increase in times of economic instability. And you would rather that happen than people die. But it's still a marker of things going very wrong. But yeah, I will defend my claim from 2 years ago. In fact, I think I've been kind of vindicated in 2 years ago saying the Republican Party just kind of doesn't have anything. All they have is Trump, and when that starts to run out, they're genuinely like they're lost. This to me looks like a Republican Party that is staring down political extinction. You know, like how there's been like party switches, and this political party was the major party, and then they kind of fell off, and then this political party was the major party, and that sort of happens in America. We're gonna look at over the next few years either a drastically reforming and like turbulent Republican Party, or a Republican Party floundering its way into the political grave. And again, I have to highlight the need for a fucking national crash out against whatever conservatives are left in government after they've been responsible for this shit. Imagine other countries looking at the situation. Yeah, why the fuck do you think trading blocks like the EU are starting to do more negotiations with China? China's a way the fuck more stable country than the United States right now. Yeah. I don't know. Republican Party looks pretty donezo based on this, based on the election results too. The crazy thing is that, like, the Republicans haven't really been able to alter public perception of them being responsible for the shutdown because Donald Trump actually kind of hasn't been helping them. They don't have the like, they don't really have the riz to go on TV, like not without Trump, they don't. And just like convince people that this is fine actually, or this somehow isn't their fault. Like it hasn't been working. The elections have shown that. Again, they got blown out in the elections, and the whole country is plunging down into the economic shitter and losing a lot of its federal programs, and costs are drastically increasing, like on a dime, because of them. I don't think there's any escaping this. We're like kind of beyond the event horizon. I'm kind of repeating myself again, but like this is a historical moment. This is a historical event that I don't mind living through. The fucking deterioration of a party that just wants you dead. At least so I hope anyways. Again, I don't dare to predict anything too specific, but like, oh, the damage would be biblical if this shutdown lasted the rest of the year. Or even and into like next year. It would be so bad. Which means it would be really bad for Republicans. And actually, like, however long this government shutdown lasts, each day that it lasts into increases the likelihood of an FDR-esque figure being necessary and likely to appear. To try to clean up the mess, basically. If that makes sense. I think that's about all I have to say on this. People going hungry is bad. So yeah, it'd be good if all the federal programs got funded and shit. But, you know, the Republicans have to capitulate to us this time, motherfucker. The Republicans have to capitulate to the left to get these fucking federal programs back up and running. Because if they want to make this about, like, state by state weathering the storm, they're going to lose out. Their states are going to bear the brunt of this first. You think people will revolt if it lasts for too long? If your definition of too long is long enough to make people revolt, then yes. We are going to start experiencing more civil unrest depending on how long this goes on, because food insecurity tends to do that to people. But I think before that even happens, it's likely that we see some kind of debt crisis emerge, where medical care becomes... Like, medical care, as expensive as it was, prohibitively so in the United States, it's going to become even more prohibitively expensive when the subsidies for the Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare, are no longer there. You know? Yeah, if those subsidies completely go away and people start dropping out of the insurance pool and not paying for their insurance, because why the fuck would you? Medical care is going to be, like, unthinkably expensive. 5 times as expensive as it is right now. And right now you have to pay $5,000 for like a minor procedure. At this point, should I have a thing on the paper where it says, you're my slave now? That's what debt is. Congratulations, you have discovered what debt is. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's not good. It's really not good. Yeah, they don't call it late stage capitalism for nothing. Jesus. Fuck it. Look, I'm ride or die accelerationism if this radicalizes the American people into saying, fuck you, nationalize the food industry, nationalize the medical industry, nationalize the fucking transit sector, nationalize the fucking power infrastructure and all that shit, right? Oh no, liberals are fucking mad at it. Liberals probably would agree with me more so than like any, you know, opposing take. Like, I feel like if you're a liberal, you probably agree with 80-something% of what I just said, if not 90+%. Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see and chew our fingernails in the meantime. End the segment there. Fuck. Someone throw a rock at you? Yeah. What's up, Spiel? You don't call it November for nothing? Yeah, it's the month of November. What? I don't... Genuinely, I don't get it. It's level 18 and has 100 something HP. That's crazy. I will nickname you. And you Sphere. Beginning part is word no on it. Oh, well, your previous message didn't have that. Yeah, No Nut November, the month in which you can no longer buy nuts from the grocery store because you don't get your SNAP benefits anymore. Teehee. Almost star, you fuck. Get the fuck out of my sight, Almost star. Police continue to get funding through this? Yeah. Well, yeah, police are not funded federally. I hope you know that. And everybody at home. It's the federal government that's shut down right now. Police are funded at the state and local level, so they still get funding. Right? Also, ICE still gets their funding because the government decided to make them super extra special. Blue states are funding food stamps? But states are funding food stamps? Yeah, because the federal government isn't. The government... See, like I described, the government wants to see minorities suffer. So consistent with that would be not funding SNAP, but funding ICE. Right? That's the through line. They want minorities to suffer. ICE makes minorities suffer. Not having access to food stamps makes minorities suffer. The problem is getting rid of federal programs like SNAP and healthcare subsidies also makes everybody else suffer too, including their own base, especially their own base, because you know the poor and uneducated actually skew very heavily conservative. The people who need those federal programs the most are the people voting for Republicans who want to destroy those federal programs, for the most part. You know, just statistically speaking, right? Like, most people are poor in the colloquial sense of the word, as in financially, like, struggling. I knew Jared. Let me swap something for this. Wonder what rich people are thinking right now? I don't know, man. I really could not tell you. I know that some rich people are thinking about, like, man, you know, this tariff business is kind of, you know, it's kind of not great. You should probably, like, not do that, actually. And there's quite a few rich people that are also thinking, man, I wish the government would bail me out from the AI bubble. You know, that'd be good. That'd be great for me and my interests, you know? Oh, for shit's sake. Thank you. How's the mayor taking their loss for New York? Eric Adams is taking it all right. Eric Adams is, like, not as upset about it as, you know, the Democratic Party and Donald Trump. Like, Eric Adams has just kind of been doing whatever. He's not, like, he, remember, was in the mayor's race for the general as an independent, but tried to dropped out a little bit too late, so he was still on the ballot. But, like, you didn't really hear much about him, you know? Like, he wasn't really, his heart wasn't in it. I don't look at him, he's not real. What, like Mamdani? Yeah, that's, I mean, funnily enough, that's how the Democratic Party has been behaving towards Mamdani, but Eric Adams hasn't really been doing that. He's just kind of been in the background, just kind of not being very relevant, despite still being the mayor of New York City. You know, there's, I get the sense from what I've seen of Eric Adams, I get the sense there is actually more animus between the Democrats and Mamdani, like at the national level, the centrist Dems and Zohran Mamdani, than there is between Eric Adams specifically and Zohran Mamdani. You know? You see that video where Israel's like, please, Mamdani, come over here. We will not kill you. Winky. Yeah, I did see that. If anybody, I'm sure people who have any even passing interest in politics probably would know this to, if they, you know, to hear about it. Israel has like a thing. There's like an Israeli propaganda circuit where in order to like make sure that politicians capitulate to Israel as a concept and to like military industrial complex interests, a lot of times they will do like, Israel will do performative like tours of Israel, like a propaganda tour basically, to go like, oh, look how great Israel is. We are truly a bastion of the West and Western civilization and whatever. Look how awesome our country is. There's no discrimination against Palestinians, but also Palestinians aren't real. Something like that. Go to a pride parade. Look how progressive we are. in the lib shit sense. And a lot of politicians do that. You know, and since Zohran Mamdani won the mayorship of New York City, there was this Israeli organization. It almost looked like an evangelical mega church or something. And there was this lady saying like, come to Israel. You can see how great it is here. And it's funny, they couldn't they couldn't help themselves but like adopt a like seething, spitting tone when referring to like the negative things that have been correctly said about Israel. and so like, so we can dispel the heinous lies and slander that our great state has received, you know, the state of Israel, or whatever. So we can show you how great of a place this truly is, despite your preconceived notions, or whatever. It was actually like really passive aggressive, which I think made it way funnier, because I was sitting there like, oh yeah, that's gonna convince, like, that's not even gonna convince any like random, actually undecided person, let alone like somebody who has a history of pro-Palestine activism, right? But yeah, somebody did bring up that like it's legitimately possible that if Mamdani were to go over there, he would be lynched because Israelis are that insane. And obviously he's not going to go over there. Because the reason tours like that exist is to be like, oh, yeah, let's just give you an uninterrupted propaganda slop feed of how it's actually justified for us to displace all these Palestinians and kill them in the West Bank and Gaza, and like settle the land with Israeli settlers and do this ethno-nationalist nation building project, but put an extremely thin veil of liberalism over it, you know? Imagine if Mamdani made a video where he just says no. I think the smartest thing and the funniest thing and the thing that he is going to do is just not even acknowledge it at all. You know? Like he's even been asked several times. God, every single time he's interviewed by I skipped a destination floor. God damn it. Every single time Mamdani is interviewed by a news outlet, the only thing they ever want to ask him is, will you condemn globalize the Intifada? Will you support Israel tonight, Queen? Or something like that. And every time he's like, I'm the mayor, I'm gonna be the mayor of New York, not Tel Aviv. Settle down. Basically, you know, a much more stump speech version of that, you know? I fucking hate that it doesn't stop. I'm getting kind of annoyed that it doesn't stop you from just skipping a destination floor outright when you come upon it. Thanks, Tentacruel. Dang, team kill. Maybe teammates, but they're not friends. True. I can't wait for this to miss on a sleeping opponent. Never mind. Or are they sleeping together? I don't know. Oh my god, they were roommates. Type shit. What's up, Rattata? Yes, I will go back to town. Run a dodge scarf. Very good. Very good. I might actually save the AI bubble for like next stream because I want to make a segment out of that. I can briefly mention it now, but like I kind of passively mentioned that or passively mentioned that a lot of wealthy people are now looking for a government bailout because they kind of know that the writing's on the wall. And I think that's an indication that the AI bubble is beginning to pop. It's pretty bad. Imagine someone was transformed into a spider in Pokemon who was afraid of spiders. I feel like that could go one of two ways. One way being you just absolutely start going through it because you're afraid of spiders, and it's like, oh fuck, this is a living nightmare. And the other one being like, oh, this is kind of awkward, but like now I know how spiders move. I guess I'm not as afraid of spiders anymore because now I'm a spider. All right. You know, like I used to be afraid of spiders as a kid. But as I grew older, I started to actually like look at spiders more and more and how they moved. And now I think they are beneficial to us. Thank you, because they eat insects that would harm us or eat our food or something. And also they just move kind of goofy, and it's really funny to watch them move. Like if a spider's walking along, I imagine there being like slapstick cartoon running sound effects. You know? Though I do have a healthy, you could call it maybe a little bit of a fear, an aversion to spiders that are larger than a certain size. You know? Yeah, Klefki, the fucking car keys Pokemon. Imagine. I'll store this. I'll store this. I'll store this. Top 10 Pokemon I would never want to be. I would never want to be. There's like 1,000+ Pokemon, so it's hard for me to name a top 10. I guess I really want to... I guess I particularly would not want to be Shuckle. That's a Pokemon I could think of really not wanting to be. Granbull also, I don't think I would want to be. Psyduck, I also would not want to be Psyduck. That's another one. If you read Psyduck, the Psyduck Pokedex entry, he always has massive, like, ear-splitting, ringing headaches. You know? Like, Psyduck can learn Psychic-type moves and has some Psychic powers, but all of them in his Dex entry, it's written down as, like, them manifesting as him just having headaches all the time. And I'm like, poor bastard, why did they have to do that to him, you know? So I wouldn't want to be Psyduck, that's for sure. It would kind of suck to be Magikarp or Feebas, but then I would get to be Gyarados or Milotic. I probably might actually really like being Milotic. Because Milotic is very pretty. Yeah, if it, like in your early years before you fulfill the conditions that you need to evolve into the other Pokemon, you just kind of get the shit beaten out of you. I don't know. Hmm. The beginning of the game didn't allow you to pick ghost type for yourself? Yeah, because there are no ghost types that really fit the starter archetype. You know? $9.96 in the bank. Check out the job bulletin board. Great Canyon, Mount Blaze, Maverick Cavern, Mount Breeze. I have one on Mount Blaze, so I can pick that one up. Boop. Now what I need to do... Did I put dive away? I did. I need to double check my mailbox. Lapis Cave, Mount Steel, Thunderwave Cave. Okay. Is it funny that in stories the language barrier doesn't exist between countries? I actually think it's really interesting when they specifically incorporate the language barrier into a game, or they just don't address it at all. Okay, the funniest version of this is Tekken, by far and away. In Tekken, there's characters from a bunch of different countries. You know, Tekken, the fighting game series. And they all just understand each other when they're speaking their native language, or when they're not speaking a language at all. Like, King and Armor King are both Mexican. They speak Spanish. They speak a real language. But ever since they put on the Jaguar mask, they just make, like, big cat growling noises. And it has, like, subtitles in parentheses. And every other character just understands them. And then the bear, Kuma, just does bear grunts. And everybody understands him. And then fucking... There's a bunch of Japanese characters that all speak Japanese. There's like a Chinese character that speaks Chinese. People mostly speak their native languages. And they'll be speaking their native languages, which are like all different languages. None of them will speak the other language, but they'll just all all understand each other perfectly. Like somebody will be speaking English, somebody will be growling, somebody will be speaking Japanese, somebody's going to be speaking Chinese, and all of them are just fucking like chopping it up. It's like, okay, yeah, the Chewbacca phenomenon. By far the funniest version of a language barrier in video games. But in Pokemon, they did an interesting take on this, where they actually do incorporate a language barrier. In the Pokemon games outside of Unova, canonically, you are speaking Japanese, because the game takes place in Japan. Kanto Prefecture is a real place in Japan, and the locations in Pokemon are actually based on locations in Japan. In Generation 4, in the remakes of Pokemon Gold and Silver, in Heart Gold, Soul Silver post-game, you encounter a Team Rocket grunt in Kanto, who stole a part from the power plant, a machine part. And he is the last Team Rocket fight in the whole game, unless you do the event Giovanni fight, which happens a bit later, which you can activate after this potentially. But he's the last Team Rocket battle otherwise. And you go up to him, and he's speaking really broken English. But you're in Japan. So he's actually speaking really broken Japanese. And he describes to you that he's from another country. And he once he learns that Team Rocket is done, he goes home. You then find this guy in Unova, in Pokemon Black and White, and I think Black and White 2 as well, in Isura City, which is where the Ice-type gym is. Bangin' theme, by the way. I fucking love the music from Black and White. You find a guy, who has the sprite of a roughneck, in his house with his family, and he perfectly coherently tells you how he was part of a criminal gang that operated in Johto and Kanto. But then, some kid came and beat everybody up, so he had to go home. And so you learn that, like, he's not speaking in broken English because you're speaking English in that game, which is his native language. And that was a really interesting little Easter egg. I really liked it. And that's actually I think that's a fun example of a language barrier being incorporated in a video game. Where, like, for the most part, if you're in one region, everybody's going to speak the same language, mostly. But then you have one person who's speaking what sounds like really broken English. You come to find out, oh, right, we're in Japan. He's speaking broken Japanese. Then you go to America, the region where everybody speaks English, for the most part, and he's speaking perfectly fluent English because that's his first language. Imagine telling a child your criminal history. Yeah, well, the cops in Pokemon are just regular ass Pokemon trainers, and they're kind of pushovers. So, like, you can cop to being a former Team Rocket member, and I don't think there would be any social consequence for that. You know? I think in order to free up space in my mailbox, I think I'm going to take one of these at the very least. So there you go. Now I have Lapis Cave. I'll take some from the bulletin board as well. Then I'm actually just going to end stream a few minutes early because I'm tired today. Setting up those foam panels was actually more tiring than I expected. Took that one from Mount Blaze. Take me with you. I don't want to do escort missions. But that's all there is. I could do this one from Mount Freeze. Okay. The new Pokemon game, the side quests get pretty weird. Don't spoil it. After I beat this game, I'm going to play that one on stream. I want to experience how jank that game is. Pokemon that brainwashes people to stop complaining? Damn, just like fucking real world news outlets. That's crazy. Alright, save completed. Simple Flips is playing Block Wars in Minecraft. I'm a big fan of Simple Flips. I think instead I will raid Hassan. Maybe. Maybe. Yeah. Let's do that. Yeah. I think it's usually, I think it's a good idea from the perspective of growing my channel. I think it's a good idea to raid a few people consistently. So if I'm raiding like Hassan and Cody and you know, Liv Agar and Aoife when they're live, right? There's like a core of streamers.